You've been watching live coverage of a potentially precedent-setting Supreme Court case at issue whether the state of Colorado can keep former President Trump off the 2020 presidential ballot in that state due to his involvement in events surrounding the January 6th insurrection. Back with us, Neil Katyal, Chuck Rosenberg, Andrew Weissman, Kenji Yoshino, Joyce Vance, joining us, Lisa Rubin, and of course my colleagues here, Ana Cabrero and Jose Diaz-Balart. Andrew, let me ask you first, because it seemed to us in listening to this so closely for the last 2 hours, 19 minutes or so, that there was broad agreement across the usual political division lines that there was a lot of ambiguity in this process and that ambiguity would favor keeping the candidate, Donald Trump, on the ballot.
I agree with you. My takeaway from this is you were counting the votes. Remember, Justice O'Connor famously said when she was asked what's it like to be on the Supreme Court, it's about counting to 5. Here, there is clearly, I think, 5 votes, if not 9 votes, that are going to reverse this case. The point that you made about ambiguity was raised by various justices, meaning that if it's not clear, shouldn't that sort of favor having somebody being allowed to run and thus our ability to vote for that person? There was a lot of concern about having a state have the power to interfere with a federal election. It's not a state interfering with a state election. It's should they really be able to weigh in on this? And then there was an interesting sort of across, as your point, across different justices, Ketanji Brown Jackson, Chief Justice Roberts, Justice Thomas, who is very active in this oral argument, talking about the history of this amendment, talking about how it really dealt with the Confederacy and the concern about Confederates burrowing in to Confederate states and sort of influencing federal elections. And so it would be anomalous. It would be ironic to suddenly say, oh, this is sort of, we should allow states to take this on. It's a reason to have federal jurisdiction here, not state jurisdiction. Big takeaway is this is, I think, going to be a win for Donald Trump and a loss for Colorado.
And it was so interesting, Anna, that it was Justice Jackson that brought up that whole issue of the history of not permitting the insurrectionists in a Confederate context.
Well, and again, we know so many of these Supreme Court justices consider themselves textualists or originalists in terms of their ideology. And so that history piece is important here.
Yeah, history played a big role in the discussion today. As a history nerd, Anna, I found it fascinating. To Andrew's point, you heard a little bit about the history of the 14th Amendment across ideological lines. Chief Justice Roberts said, for instance, that the intent behind the 14th Amendment was not to empower the states, but rather to constrain the states, that the power would be that of the federal government post-Civil War to keep the states in line. And so the notion that you would give states the power to police a federal election, to qualify or, in this case, disqualify a federal candidate would be anathema, right? Would be an opposite to the history of the 14th Amendment. Again, you heard it from Chief Justice Roberts, you heard it from Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, you heard it from Elena Kagan, and you heard sort of hints of it, I think, from Justice Thomas as well. So very interesting historical argument, and I agree with Andrew. It seems to me that the votes are clearly on the side of overturning the decision of the Colorado Supreme Court.
Neil, how did you see it, and what were some of the parts that struck out the most to you?
So, I've watched over 400 Supreme Court arguments. I've done 50 myself. I would tell you this argument did not go well for the Trump challengers, and that's to put it mildly. I probably have some other adjectives that I won't say on air. In the thing that I was watching for was any indication anywhere about just how dangerous a ruling to overturn the Colorado Supreme Court was. We heard a lot from the court, particularly the Chief Justice, Justice Kavanaugh, Justice Alito, about how if you affirm the Colorado decision, it'll empower states to mess with federal elections. And to be sure, that's a risk. But what you never heard the Trump challengers really get at was the risk on the other side, that this is a canonical part of our Constitution, forged after the Civil War at one of the most difficult times in our nation's history. And yet we came together and said insurrectionists can't be on the ballot, not just about the Civil War, but going forward for all sorts of reasons. There was no discussion of that, really. Basically, they allowed Donald Trump to read the 14th Amendment like a tax code, looking for a loophole here and a loophole there. And unfortunately, the stakes on the other side were not presented to the court today. And so I saw only one justice, really, Justice Sotomayor, who was really listening to what the Colorado challengers were saying. And it wouldn't shock me if even she, when push came to shove, and she reads the transcript of this argument, may come the other way. Now, the justices could go back. They could read all the friend of the court briefs, which make a lot of these points, and come up with the other side. But, presumably they read those briefs before the argument today, and they got no help, to use Justice Alito's word, no help from the challengers to Trump today in the oral argument.
And can I ask a follow about that specifically? Because, Neil, you are somebody who's argued before the Supreme Court. We know that the challengers here, their lawyer, Jason Murray, this is his first time going before the Supreme Court, whereas Trump's lawyer has argued before the Supreme Court 5 times before. Did you recognize the disparity in terms of their experience there, or did you feel like both lawyers gave their strongest case and strongest arguments here?
Yeah, I don't want to chalk it up to experience. Like, as you say, I've had a lot of experience, but I'll certainly mess up arguments. And so experience is no, guarantee of anything. I don't want to say that, but I do want to say, in a case of this gravity, you need to basically call out the other side, and you need to call out the court even. And so you need to say about the other side, you're gutting the Constitution, Donald Trump. What you need to say to the court is, look, you for years have staked yourself on strict construction of the document, on the original intent of the document. The original intent of the document is so clear against Donald Trump. You need to be using their methodology that they've used to say, look, you've got to be consistent with what you've said before. We heard none of that today. I'm not sure why, but, that makes it, frankly, a really easy case for the U.S. Supreme Court to decide in favor of Donald Trump. Now, at the same time is percolating also this other case about, does Donald Trump have absolute immunity, which should arrive at the court the next week. And you could imagine a world in which the court, the gravity of the court, where the center of the court, that's the chief, Justice Barrett, Justice Kavanaugh, say, look, our principle here should be to reduce the temperature about the Supreme Court, basically stay out of decisions wherever we can. And the way to do that, I think that path forward would be to say, here Trump wins. The 14th Amendment is not self-executing because of this very technical argument about the Sea Clamors case. You need Congress to act. So we're going to stay out, basically, of that. Won't disturb the finding that Donald Trump was an insurrectionist. That's one state's court finding. We're not going to touch it, but just leave it on this technical point about self-execution. And then when it comes to the absolute immunity case, say, we can't be the court that stops this trial from happening before the presidential election. And so we're just going to deny
Neil,
hearing the case.
I'm sorry to interrupt. We have the former president speaking right now in Mar-a-Lago. Let's listen.